Hey, good morning, mediums. Welcome to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium. It's season 2, episode 51, which means you just passed the halfway mark for this year. Golf clap for everyone. Golf clap. I am Josh Hayes here with my co-host Scott Moon, and today the USA Today best-selling science fiction author of the Dark Space series and New Frontiers trilogy, Jasper T Scott, joins the show. He's been writing and publishing since 2012, and today he joins us to talk about his writing journey. Jasper, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And thank you for taking the time to come hang out with us and experience our shenanigans. In the fullest shenanigans as you could do. He's in the live chat today, so everybody that's hanging out with us, thanks for coming and hanging out with us, and don't say anything silly in there.
Or say whatever. Or it'd be a good chance to put some questions, but keep in mind that you can put them directly to Jasper, but we may work them into the show kind of as it fits the narrative and whatnot like that. So I do want to show you my T-shirt. So I know this is a little bit off. So, of course, you probably can't even see it. This is so dumb.
It says, I tried it at home.
If you look at it, it's a stick guy. He's on fire. So,
That's
I know
awesome.
we don't normally do cool stuff on Monday, or we do cool stuff on Mondays. But we don't normally talk about what we did. But we have a gym my wife and I go to, and they have silly shirt Wednesdays, and I never have a silly shirt, so I ordered this shirt off of Amazon. Thank you, Amazon.
And that's $5.
And that's $5. Yeah, right. Anyway, so I'm really excited. Great show. We're looking at your books, Jasper, and you got an incredibly large amount of reviews, a lot of great fan base. It looks like so.
That's one of the trademarks.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we were talking just before you joined us, Jasper. 4,166 reviews on your Dark Space.
That's a bunch.
First book. That's just the U.S. The UK has like another 1,300.
Freaking insane.
See, that's funny because a lot of times they don't always translate internationally. I got a bad review, and I was crying. So everybody feels sorry for Scott the other day. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh, that's horrible. Somebody's trying to kill my spirit. And I was reading it, all the things you do. But then I look at it, I'm like, where are my other reviews? And I was just panicked. They wiped all my other reviews. And then I realized I was on Australian Amazon. I had a lot fewer there. So then I
more noticeable bad ones.
Yeah, it got progressively better after that. So, but it was a little
I
scary.
always freak out about that. If it's a bad review up, in the beginning, and you're just getting your reviews going, and the bad ones are really noticeable at that point.
Right. Well, they keep it real because you get lots of good ones.
Yeah, it's good because as a reader, I always read the bad reviews to get like a balanced idea of, okay, this is what's really wrong with the book, so I don't get disappointed.
Do you ever go and look at like
it's like biased in that direction, but
yeah, there's a lot of times where a lot of books, and I won't mention them by name, but you read all the 5-star reviews and all the 4-star reviews. Sometimes they say different things, and they praise the book and the author and whatnot, all the normal things you see in good reviews. And then you read, I go down to the 1- and 2-star reviews, because then usually you get a really good idea of what is actually wrong with the book. Instead of just somebody saying, this book sucks, a lot of times you'll get, I didn't like because the spelling was bad. And then you look at how many bad reviews say the spelling was bad, or I didn't like the thing.
Exactly. Then you can start to get an idea of what's really going on.
It's a good idea to check some of those 1-star reviews to see, because a lot of times you'll click on those 1-star review people and they just give 1-star reviews to everyone in the world.
Exactly. Too.
You're an author and you're, like me, you're crying in the corner because you got your first bad review, and you just check and see. 'Cause some people give harder reviews than others. And a lot of times there's a lot of discussion about mining reviews for feedback. So probably we should go. Oh, go ahead.
That's something I do a lot. I like to read my bad reviews particularly because it gives me ideas. Okay, this is what I could improve. And I spent, years reading all my reviews, good and bad, and figuring out, okay, this is what people like, what they don't like, and try to use that as a guide going forward with the next book.
See, because if I had your reviews, I would skip I would go through all the good ones. I'd go through them in order. I feel really good about myself by the time I got to the bad one.
Usually I just harp on the bad ones, and I think and then I get depressed, and then I go back to the good ones. I'm like, oh, okay, everybody still loves me.
It's funny because it's funny how much more powerful to a writer's psyche a bad review is. You can get 1,000 good reviews in a row. You get one bad one.
One bad one, and it's like,
burn it down.
Well, we should probably get into talking about kind of your writing journey and your books before we get too sidetracked today.
I was going to say, talking about reviews, we need to try to work out that way to do the 1-star, like the author's best 1-star reviews. Our idea was to have every author, like not every author we had on the show, but authors come back and do like a little soundbite of reading their 1-star reviews and then doing like a collage of the best 1-star reviews as read by the author. But anyway,
it's a concept that we're very fond of. It hasn't fully materialized yet. But
I think
it could be hilarious.
Yeah. I didn't like the hot dogs in this product.
What?
And you're like, they're not even hot dogs.
My best review was delivered on time, product was quality as required, and buy again. I'm like, I'm not sure what that says about the book, but
well, Jasper, obviously you have a huge fan base, and congratulations to you on that. But for those in our audience that might not know who you are, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in writing?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I started writing when I was 19. And I actually started writing romance novels. My parents' story of all things. And that was a little weird, but it got me the experience I needed to start actually writing professionally. So you know how sometimes people say you got to do something long enough to get good at it and just stick with it and eventually it happens. Well, I must have written like 6 books in romance before I said to myself, well, first of all, it's not the genre I want to write for. Second of all, it's not working. So time to try something new. And then I thought, well, what do I really want to write? It's science fiction. So then I started writing that, and I wrote 2 more books and got a little bit of success going and started to see what works and what doesn't. And shortly after that, I ended up writing Dark Space. So that was like a long journey, really, like, I don't know how many years, but 19 till 20, I think I was 23, 20, no, sorry, I was 26, almost 26 when I started to really succeed as a writer. 7 years writing with no results, no success.
Yeah.
You know, just experience.
I'm really interested in you said that you started writing romance and you did that to write your parents' love story. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Correct. Sure. It's my parents grew up in South Africa, and they had a very unusual sort of Snow White-ish story, which was the title of all things, was Africa's Snow White.
Oh, very cool.
They had a very unusual story in that, I guess, you know, maybe not that unusual, but just a dramatic one, in that my mother's parents were, you know, just overly involved and getting in the way of them being together. And one day, you know, when they were married, trying to break them up. So it was like a lot of drama all the time. But I ended up thinking, wow, that's an interesting story. It'd be nice to write about it, because it's basically drama, romance, you know, like, I don't know, like something you'd see on British TV.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a
Downton Abbey kind of thing, but modern version.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. It sounds like almost like we could make a reality show or something.
Yeah, something like that. But for me, it served as like really good experience to, you know, start figuring out what it takes to be a writer and just get the practice, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's like a powerful real life story, and you know.
Now, did you read romance when you decided to start out doing that?
Back then, yeah, I used to read romance. I'd read like Danielle Steele, which I wasn't too fond of, and other examples like Nora Roberts, who's very popular. And most of it's like, you know, sort of on the explicit side. Most of the popular romance novels, which I didn't write explicit, but you know, it was sort of eye-opening to me that maybe I'm writing for a genre and I'm writing the wrong kinds of books for the genre anyway.
It's such a complex genre with so many different levels, but I think you need to write what you feel the strongest pull towards.
You got to write what inspires you, what you want to read.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And especially even though I can enjoy a romance novel, it's not what I typically would read. You know? Right. I actually appreciate sci-fi if it has a romance plot. Like, for example, my favorite movie so far in sci-fi is Passengers. And I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was fantastic. That's basically
I haven't
romance in
seen
space.
it yet, but it is high on my list.
I
Yeah,
really
it was
enjoyed
really good.
Passengers. It was because you're right. You don't see a lot of some in science fiction in the written form, but definitely not in the movie form, where you see that kind of exploring that kind of a setting and that kind of a theme and a sci-fi thing. You'll get that definitely in romance, like in a Nicholas Sparks movie. You know what you're going to get.
Exactly. But I thought that was really, really just unique and well executed. There were some critiques on it. And I even watched a video of one that was like, here's how it should have been. Like they should have just filmed it a little differently from a different point of view, and it would have been better. And I thought, well, okay, that's more mysterious. It would have worked better. But overall, I thought they did a good job, and got me thinking about plots I could write.
I'm gonna have to watch that tonight. I'll get it on Amazon Prime or something.
It's interesting to see how they could have restructured the plot to make it more, maybe a little darker, more mysterious.
Yeah, and I liked the twist that you learn as you watch the movie. You see the commercials and you're like, oh yeah, and then you see it and you see the twist and you're like, oh, well, shit. So
and don't spoil it. I mean, we normally do spoilers.
I am not spoiling. Normally we do spoilers and then do the spoiler warning after. Yeah. And so that way it's all.
What you just saw, that was a spoiler, by the way.
Yeah.
Good
so you said you read all different kinds of genres. You started kind of getting your writing chops done on this romance stuff.
Exactly. But secretly at the time I was reading sci-fi and horror and other stuff, and kind of like trying to write my own side projects along those lines, and just never really got a full book done.
Do you know what books or series inspired you to start the Dark Space stories?
Yeah. I mean, I was inspired by Battlestar Galactica from TV, and I was inspired by things like, well, Star Wars was a big one. I used to read that when I was growing up. I read that almost exclusively when I finished school, but it's still a good influence. And popular sci-fi, I really loved Stargate Atlantis. I wanted to imbue that kind of like creepiness in the aliens and stuff along those lines. So with books.
Go ahead.
No, with books, there weren't a lot of strong influences with books. I actually wanted to write something that like a movie than a book. Based and really.
I don't know if your turning is messing with your microphone jack or not, but you cut out just a little bit when you were talking.
Yeah, you cut out your mic.
Nope, can't hear you now. Yeah, your mic. You might want to check the plug in your mic because I think it got pulled out because I don't hear you at all.
All right, let's see.
Hey, that's way better. Gotcha.
Yay.
Way better. Okay, that's good.
So tell us a little bit about Dark Space.
My job is to have technical difficulties. So, but thanks.
Well, Dark Space started in 2013, and I wrote that in like a month, the first book, and then didn't really do a lot of editing. So it was basically 6 weeks to when I finished and published it. And it first actually became successful in the UK and really got noticed there first. And I went on my honeymoon and came back, and suddenly I'm making more money from writing than I was making in my day jobs. So I'm like, okay, I think maybe I could do this full time.
Always a great feeling.
Yeah, it was a great feeling. And then I just wrote the sequel, and pretty soon I was noticed in the US as well, and it became a really big thing, like really overnight success. It was selling like 900 books a day.
That's pretty decent.
Startling. And by the time I'd finished the first 3 books in the series, it was all that same year, 2013. I had already enough money to buy my first new car, and go find a bigger place to rent, and just basically get started as a professional writer.
So yeah, I think that would be. I think knowing the people that watch this show and myself, and for sure that would have been my ideal first year too.
I think anybody's.
What do you attribute that level of success to? I mean, did you put more? Did you put a lot of thought and foresight into the marketing and presentation of the book, or did for some reason just took off by accident, or what?
I looked at my previous sci-fi book, and I looked at that taught me something, which was for a book to do well, you need professional cover, like something that you can see in a thumbnail and it's really interesting looking and you want to maybe find out more. Then you need a really short, evocative synopsis, something that you just read a paragraph and you're like, I want to read this book. Have in the marketing side, you need to have a way for this to become at least a little bit viral. And what occurred to me on Amazon, one of the things that was with one of my early books, a real issue was, how do you get reviews? How do you get people to read your work, review your work, and tell other people about it? Right. And mostly on Amazon, the algorithms, they tend to notice books that get more reviews. So at least back then, but I think still today. So I was thinking, how can I encourage people who read this book to just review it? Like, my book, and maybe I can give them something back. And I came up with the idea that if you read my book and give me an honest review, I'll give you the sequel for free. Gave that as like a standing offer. And pretty soon I was getting like 10, 20 reviews a day.
So that's interesting. Let me make sure I heard you right. So that read the first book, you get the next one free. So it's like,
exactly,
because a lot of people now are doing the first book free to try and draw people to the second book. So
yeah, and that helps. And I did that too. But after they read the first book free, I also wanted them to review it.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting.
So it was.
Did you get a lot of? I mean, did you get a lot of feedback from that? Like people saying, "Yes, I want the second book, so I'm going to go leave my review," or sending you proof that they left a review so they could get the second book. How did you do all that?
Well, that was the key: is get a system going where they can send me the review and then I can send them the book. Initially, I did that by hand. I just replied to all the emails, say, "Here's your copy, and so on," and give them instructions how to download it because I couldn't actually buy my own book and give it to people; it'd be too expensive.
Right.
Yeah,
but I automated the system over time, did like autoresponder emails and just send people an automatic email after they send me their review. Over time now, it's really, really a good system.
We had a question how Amazon feels about offering things for reviews. And I believe if I remember the contract correctly, obviously everybody should read it, is you can't give away other stuff. You can't give away
exactly.
give away money or cars or stuff like that, but you can give away copies of books for reviews. If I understand correctly.
Exactly. That's actually key because we do it a lot, and it's been industry standard for ages that you give away something called an ARC to, say, a popular review or a magazine or whatever, and they go and review your book. Well, nowadays the equivalent of that is you go to your friend or somebody that's not even your friend, but somebody who can review your work, and you give them a free copy in order to give you that review.
People sign up for your mailing list, they contact you through your webpage or through social media, and they say, or maybe bloggers. I know probably in 2013, blog tour was still a really big thing. I don't know if it still is, but you would send out advanced reading copies to like 100 different bloggers and then hope that they would read it, review it, blog about it, and stuff like that.
Exactly, and that's standard practice, and it's an important part of a book launch is to get together a group of people who you can send the free copies to in advance and get them to review it like launch day, or at least within a few days of launch.
I remember when what was it last year? Amazon came out and said you can't give free products away or whatever. Like people were reviewing vacuums and getting free vacuums for their reviews, and Amazon was basically, they came out and were like, bam, can't do that anymore. And then all the indie authors, like all of them on Facebook, just blew up like, oh my God, we can't give away free stuff. And I'm like, I'm not exactly sure that's what they meant, because that's not what they said in their thing. Matter of fact, there's a line right here that says it's good.
Exactly. I think I had my brother or my dad sent me that article about the change in Amazon policy as a result of those things, and I read very carefully. I'm like, okay, but it says nothing about free books, and I think it might have even mentioned it's okay to do that part.
Yeah, it did.
But it's more like expensive things, and for example, if I were to say I'm going to pay you $5 if you give me a review, that kind of thing's not allowed.
And there were authors that were doing that at one point. They were going to Fiverr and buying a bunch of reviews on Fiverr. A few people got caught stings. It's unethical, and it's a short-term thinking that I think even if it worked is going to bite somebody. But I think Amazon had a bunch of stings on Fiverr where they caught people doing that, and it was a big deal at the time, I guess.
Exactly. No, it doesn't work really long term, because pretty soon you start to notice the real reviews and the difference. You get all the real readers giving you bad reviews and all the paid ones giving you good ones. It's a little suspicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people accuse me of that. I used to get, especially in Dark Space 1, the first book, I used to get people accusing me all the time in their reviews. They would say, this author must have paid everybody to say nice things.
Right.
You know, and it just wasn't true. I said, give me an honest review. I didn't even say, give me a 5-star review. I couldn't bring myself to do that.
Right.
Which is interesting that they would say that, because out of what, 40, almost 4,200 reviews, you have a 4.2 star rating, and 47% are 4 stars and 40% are 5 stars, and only 1 and 2% are 1 and 2 star reviews. So
exactly, but those 1 and 2 star guys got pretty vocal about, I hated the book, so all these other people must be lying for some reason.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, there's always going to be kind of some review trolls out there.
There's always hecklers. It's like, I think stand-up comedians have it the worst, but writers are standing right behind them saying, yeah, we don't like our hecklers either.
See, that's why we need to have this 1-star review show. And that way we can, and I think James McCormick said it earlier when he was like, oh, that now you're going to have some people coming up with some really creative 1-star reviews.
No. Well, I've also seen,
I'm not sure we're that big.
We've talked a lot about reviews, but I did see at one point there was a trend where people would do a bad review, but they'd give it a 5-star review. So people would, because they wanted to be at the top, because people that really hated somebody's book or really wanted to say something bad, they'd write a negative review, but they'd give it a 5-star, and then people's fans would blindly vote those up. And so they would stay at the top.
Nice.
So I remember reading one like that as a 5-star review, and it was just scalding, just tearing this book down. And I was like, why is this 5-star review? And then I did some research and found out that was a thing for a while.
I didn't know that.
So that's a lot of effort going into this. I leave book reviews. I knock one out real quick when I finish something, but I don't put a lot of thought into it.
No, I usually leave a book review when I have a strong reaction one way or the other to the content, like it was really good, or something I have something to say.
Right.
I left was on one of Hugh Howey's books. It was his Beacon 49.
Yes.
And, I really liked it, but I thought the message was just a little bit naive for my taste, like too pacifist, and didn't quite add up in the real world.
I'll have to read that, because
I think I started reading that when it came out in the parts, and I don't know if I ever got past 1 or 2. The
part
little
5 is the part where you might start to object a little bit and say, oh, that's just too utopian, or it doesn't work like that.
Right. The real world is mean.
I'm familiar with that
exactly
book by the cover, because I remember there was Hugh Howey had written an article at one point about book covers and how he didn't think you needed to put words on them at all as an experiment, because all that could go in the data on Amazon, and you could have these creative covers that didn't have much on them. And that was one of the examples of the design he made. It was more minimalist.
Interesting.
Than some other ones, and I don't think that ever caught on. It was an interesting idea, though, at the time.
Well, we've talked about the reviews quite a bit. I'd like to talk a little bit about the book. Can you? I know the Dark Space came out, but in 2014, it's the first book in your first 7-book series, and obviously you have Dark Space Universe that just came out. But can you give us a little glimpse into Dark Space and what it's all about?
Sure. Well, technically, it came out 2013. They updated that when I updated the edition, I guess. But yeah, the book it starts out with basically this down on his luck Han Solo type character, right? And he's got his ship, and he's being chased by a guy that he owes a lot of money. He owes a lot of money to this bad guy, basically a criminal, kingpin, and with him and basically takes hostage his co-pilot, who's a woman who has a crush on him, but he's wife that he lost in a war that happened previously, and he's not interested in pursuing anything along those lines. She's a lot younger too.
He's a noble bachelor.
A noble bachelor, kind of a bit of a stereotype, or cliche. But what happens is the bad guy comes and takes her hostage and says, you owe me a lot of money, so here's the deal. I've got a mission for you, and if you do it for me, then we're even, and I'll release your co-pilot, no problem. So the mission is pretty simple. All of humanity's hiding in a place called Dark Space, and what that is this region of space surrounded by black holes that makes it almost impossible to get in. So it's kind of like hiding in the middle of the galaxy. And what happens there is we have all humanity went there to hide. It used to be a penal colony place where they sent all their criminals to go do hard labor, basically. And then, you know, after the war basically went really badly for humanity with these aliens they called the Scythians that invaded, went and ran there. They ran to dark space and holed up there and hid away, while the Scythians basically took the whole galaxy for themselves. And so they've been hiding there successfully for the past, I think it was 10 years, you know, just peacefully hiding in this penal colony and rebuilding. And they're guarding the one way in or out of dark space gate that they've shut down, and there's no way in. So they just guard that gate in case they get discovered. And what happens is this criminal kingpin, he wants our main character, the Han Solo guy, his name's Ethan Orte, and he wants him to go and sabotage the Navy ship that's guarding the entrance. And he wants to basically take all of dark space for himself. He wants to have control over everything, right? So he figures if he can take out the government's, you know, defenses, then there's nothing to stop him from rolling in and taking over.
It's a very unique thing, setting up a civilization inside a black hole.
Well, not exactly in a black hole. It's like surrounded by them. So you've got like a few solar systems in the middle of a ring of black holes that are just this weird phenomenon in space.
Oh, okay.
I like that.
That just hides it away from, you know, people looking in and seeing, oh, there's these solar systems with people living there and ships and whatever. You know, you can't see through a black hole, so it's blocking your view.
Aha. Yeah, no, that's you know, I'm listening to your description and kind of checking out your blurb, like you mentioned, is very striking. That's a cool idea. I like that. You know, you don't come across, a lot of times you come across a sci-fi idea that get rehashed as it's popular, like the what's the Dyson spheres.
Yeah.
So everybody's got Dyson spheres. I was like, well, the first time I saw a Dyson sphere book, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. But then after and I still like them because, you know, like if you write Westerns, they're all going to be in a certain environment. So
exactly,
I'm not bashing those ideas. I'm just saying that it's cool to see a new idea pop up in some stories. So maybe some of that. So we like, I like character-driven science fiction. And one of the questions I always asked my guests is, do you have a favorite secondary character that you like to write?
Do I have a favorite secondary character, like a prototype, like, or a favorite secondary character that's actually in one of my books?
Right. Yeah. One you like to write, like, you know, a lot of times you start out, like when I start writing a book, it's about the main protagonist, but as I go along, I'll get some characters that I'm like, this one is so much fun to write and stuff. So I didn't know if you had a favorite secondary character that did cool stuff that you like.
Man, I have to give that some thought. In Dark Space, I had so many characters over time, it just kept expanding, but I think my favorite secondary character probably be one of the Gores. They were just so mysterious, and they're these aliens that actually turn out to be slave soldiers of the main invading aliens, right? Mm-hmm. And they just were so mysterious and sort of creepy, you know, because they're the face of the invasion that that humanity saw. They thought, oh, these are the Scythians. Well, no, they're not the Scythians. Behind them are these even more mysterious aliens that nobody's ever seen.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they were pretty creepy. They looked like they had these skull-shaped faces. Like you see all the bones protruding everywhere, and they got no hair. They're really big and hulking, kind of like the Hulk, but gray. You know.
That's cool.
And they could hide themselves anywhere, just cloak themselves naturally, and a lot of creepy stuff.
Like natural-born shock troops.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they were used for.
Excellent.
And so your book spans 7 stories. When you wrote that first one, did you have any idea that you were going to write more?
You know what? I wrote it with a cliffhanger ending, and I wanted to write a sequel, but I wanted to just throw it out there and see if it did well. And if it did well, I was going to write the sequel. If not, it was just going to be a cliffhanger that never gets resolved. But it turned out it did so well that there was no question I had to write a sequel, and I had to figure out how many sequels. So I thought initially I'd just write 3 books and stop after 3. So after the first 3, you got a real, you know, conclusion, a real ending to that story, and then you can keep reading for the next 3, and there's another real ending, and I'm planning to do the same thing now with 7, 8, 9.
it's kind of like multiple sets of trilogies in the same.
Exactly, they're trilogies. In fact, I already bundled them as trilogies in a series of its own that says Dark Space Trilogies, and there's the first and the second available.
Oh, very nice.
I like that idea because sometimes it's hard to keep a premise in flux or whatever for 20 books or something. You kind of need some resolution along the way.
I feel for the readers because like you don't want to read 10 books and you're still trying to figure out if it's going to end,
Right.
That's just too much for anybody. I
love the Game of Thrones and George R. R. Martin, even people are bashing on him and stuff, but that's there's some things that haven't, not only are they not resolved, they haven't really gotten started yet. This part.
Yeah, that's the general consensus with him is that it just goes on, and you just don't know how it's ever going to end or if it's going to end.
And I believe he's a gardener. I think he uses the term to gardeners and architects, and he's a gardener, and he writes on whatever old ancient DOS-based word processor, Star Plus or Star Word, or what's it?
I think it's Word Star.
Word Star.
I can't imagine that.
It's crazy. So we should probably go into some of that craft stuff, but I think Josh has an ad read we need to do.
We do need to do a show sponsor for this episode, and I'm going to be super selfish today, and I am bringing you this episode of Live. Well, not me specifically, but the anthology that I am in. It's a Bird, It's a Plane is a superhero anthology. You can see right here by the cool overlay that I was able to put on today. It's 12 short stories.
The overlay is working.
It is working. Haha! It's 12 short stories written by 12 different authors. Steve Bollier put together this anthology and its companion, World Domination, which is a supervillain anthology. But don't buy that one, buy this one, because we're having a competition to see which anthology does better, heroes or villains, and we want the heroes to win. So,
that's cool.
So you should probably buy the heroes.
I'm actually rooting for villains.
Yeah, everybody roots for the villains. This is a really fun collection to be a part of. I'm going to put a link in the live chat, so if people are interested, they can go over there. But Andy Peliquin has been on the show. Kevin G. Summers, who's been on the show. Me, Cici Akeke, who's been on the show for a while. Rhett C. Bruno. Todd Barslow, all contributed, along with several other authors. Hank Garner and his son Ian are in the Villains anthology. Really great group of guys and ladies to be a part of this anthology. It just came out today. It's a Bird, It's a Plane. It's available for 99 cents, and I'm pretty sure that's an introductory price. And I think it will go up later, but I don't know.
It's probably going to go up to $1 million.
$1 million. Yes,
yeah, one reader.
That's right.
With $1 billion, like, I've got the most expensive book in the world. I'm going to the Guinness Book of Records for this.
Chink. Yeah. And I retired.
It's just crazy enough to work.
Yes. My short story, Hero Worship, is the first superhero story I've ever written. But it's not about a superhero. So go check it out. Do it.
Fuck the system.
All right, let me change the overlay again so you guys don't have to look at that book cover all. Even though it's a fantastic book cover.
It's a good cover.
I'll there. Now we're back to normal.
Now we're back to just Josh.
Just me. Just little old me.
See, we should have put that in the intro. I should have added Josh, super selfish, doing his own promo. Hey, I normally give you a funny nickname. Comes right behind, throwing it through your nose, Josh. Hey.
Oh man. And
you're welcome.
Thank you for that. I think I might have burned myself. I'm gonna sue myself for $1 million for burning myself on this coffee.
We'll see how that works out.
I'm so broke. So you mentioned writing the first book and then leaving a cliffhanger so you could go on and write the second book, and then now you've got a couple trilogies going. I'm really interested to know, are you a plotter or a pantser? Do you kind of go in between? How does your writing process work?
Well, that's interesting because I'm all over the place. Dark Space 1, I didn't plot at all. I just sat down. I'm like, I got to write something good and I got to write something fast. Because I just finished writing another book that I threw in the garbage. I'm like, this whole thing sucks. I'm not even going to bother trying to make it better. I'm not going to publish this. This is going to And then I thought, okay, well, I just spent what 5 months writing something that's junk. So now I got to do something really, different and fast, and sort of redeem myself for wasting all that time. Dark Space. I thought, well, I'm just going to sit down and write what comes to me, and that was what came to me. I started with a character that I really liked, that I could sympathize with. He was broke like me, and me. So I thought, well, this is perfect. Now it's me. I'm just going to write me, and I ended up writing me, but obviously in space.
Yeah.
And he was married and I wasn't. Well, I actually was married at the time, but I wasn't estranged from my wife, so that was all fiction. But it was a very interesting sort of premise and character, and it just came to me, so I just wrote it.
That's awesome.
But after
that's
that,
the thing.
I started thinking,
you can write, if you write fast, you can take more chances. But if you
and in the beginning of a career, especially, you can just take as many chances as you want because you got nothing to lose, right? So I just wrote.
James McCormick wants to know what that book you threw away was.
That was I called it Survivors. It was a working title. It was like this trip to a planet. They set up a colony and they meet these weird aliens that it ended up all over the place and not really going anywhere. So I thought, wow, this is a waste of space.
So
that was a failed example of not outlining.
It's rolling the dice. So to that one, you got your character and your premise, and you blazed forward fearlessly and got it done in, we said, 6 weeks.
6 weeks and published. I didn't have an editor back then, so I didn't have beta readers, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time on perfecting it. It was just like, okay, I read through it a couple times, make sure there's no real major grammar issues and story holes, and done.
Cool.
And
that apparently worked out.
Then I did my own cover, and
there you go.
Well, that's interesting. I want to talk about that, your own cover, because the cover is pretty. I mean, it doesn't look like an indie cover. I mean, it doesn't look like you did it yourself.
Yeah, I have about 8 years experience when I was as a hobby with Photoshop, and I just took like models you can buy on the internet from like Turbo Squid is one place, and just put them all together in backdrops of space with like there's got to be like 100 different images in there, all mashed together.
That's cool.
Did you when you did that, did you specifically go into it wanting to not look like the other indie book covers that were out there? Because there was a lot in that time, 2013, 2014, that you could tell, yes, these are very indie. And knowing that, do you think that contributed to the amount of success that you had kind of in that time period with those other books?
I think that was part of it. Is I went into it thinking, what key here is the cover has to be professional. It doesn't matter how good your writing is. If you don't have a professional cover, you're lost. Nobody's going to bother. The thumbnail and figure out more about the book. And as much as we hate to admit it, that thing, don't judge a book by its cover, everybody does it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's a sign. It's just like,
I want to cover that if I saw it, I would want to read the book.
Right. Or at least explore more.
Exactly. At least find out
the
more.
back or the intro or the blurb or something like that. And we could probably do a whole show just on what a professional cover is, because there's a lot of variety.
Yeah, sure. And Hugh Howey really breaks the mold there, doing simple covers that somehow worked for him. I don't know how he did that, but anyway.
You still do your own covers?
I do and I don't. I had for a long time, I had cover artists, and he did books 4, 5, and 6 of Dark Space, and he just became too unreliable to work with. I ended up with 2 covers for Dark Space 6 because I had to hire somebody else, and then I still liked the old guy's cover better, but he was just too unreliable to go forward with, so I switched to Edwards, who's extremely popular in the genre, doing covers, and I stuck with him for New Frontiers, books 1 through 3, and now with Universe, I did my own cover again. I actually had Tom Edwards do one, and then found that people were saying it's too fantasy, looks like a fantasy book, not a sci-fi book, and I had to agree with them and say, you know what, this is probably turning my fans away.
Oh, you know what? I remember that. You posted both of those covers on the 20 Books to 50K Facebook, didn't you, for the comparison?
Yeah.
That was a couple months ago.
And you know what? Most people said they loved Tom Edwards' cover, like they liked it better than mine. But my problem was these are probably my fans talking, right? And people that know me and they know my work. What about some stranger who's never seen me before? He sees that book, he's gonna be like, fantasy, pass.
Right.
Book covers are interesting. I did a 99 Designs contest a while back, and the book, I had this series of book covers that I just loved with a passion. I mean, I would stay awake just thinking about how awesome I love the book cover. And when I ran my polls, everybody that I polled rated it dead last. And it was kind of a sad experience. So I went with what I thought represented the genre. That was a different genre than science fiction. It was just interesting, because at first I was like shocked, and then I realized, well, they got a point, because I read all the comments and stuff. So it was a very educational experience.
Reader feedback and just feedback in general is key.
Yep. Okay, so book 1 is you just wrote it straight from the gut. Book 2, did you do anything different?
All right, well, book 2, now I was thinking, okay, well, now I'm starting to get successful. I got to make sure I don't screw it up. And I wrote again sort of the same idea, just what came to me, and I tried to plan a little bit along the way. And wrote that one, I think it was 2.5 months or 2. Very fast turnaround. I didn't have an editor, so that helps. And did the cover again myself. I think it was people's favorite cover of the ones I did. And that was the book that really made the series popular, like really successful at that point. That was when I was doing 900 books, selling 900 books a day at that point. And it just took off like a rocket ship.
And that's the Invisible War we're talking about?
That's correct. And you know what I did with those books, and I still do, I treated them as lost leaders. I'm like, you know what, as a career, I just have to get started. I don't necessarily need to make a lot of money fast. I need to make enough to eat, but I didn't have a lot of expenses. So I thought, well, what's important is building the career. Let's give books away. Let's give them to people free and cheap, and just get as many readers as possible to read my work and review it. Right. And the idea then was just Dark Space 1, 99 cents, and give it away as often as possible. And Dark Space 2, $1.99, even though it wasn't good business, because at $1.99 you're still making 30% royalties, and it's like 60 cents a book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting
so 900 books a day worked out to a lot of money, but not as much as it might have been.
Sure. But you're looking at staying in it for the long term. You're not somebody who's just trying to write a couple books because they heard it was
exactly.
a good way to make money.
It was to start a career, so I thought, the more people, the better. I just need to get people reading.
Right.
Do you feel that the trilogy sets are doing well, and will you continue to do those sets?
I find the trilogies are unique in that I can give the readers a discount from versus buying all 3 books. And I can still list them for a good price, so I get the 70% royalties on all 3.
Right.
So I win, they win. The element that it gives you another actual way to be discovered and another book to market. So you have more angles to market your brand from. So what I found is, for example, I could get a BookBub deal with a trilogy, and maybe they didn't accept the book by itself, like the first book or the second book. They wouldn't accept those, but on the whole trilogy, then they ran it.
Really? And was that now? So talking about BookBub, how long did it take you to get your first BookBub? Because I know that can be somewhat of kind of like if you have a concrete wall like I have behind me, and then you just go and you just slam your face on it.
Well, that's kind of how I feel at this point, because everybody knows them, and they select so few books that to get a BookBub is almost impossible. Yeah. But I think what happened back then is I already had 1,000+ reviews, and they're like, this guy, he's got a lot of reviews, and he's obviously popular. Yeah. Work. They gave me, I don't know, like 4 BookBubs in total with Dark Space, various, either the first book or the trilogy together. It's like 2 times each probably.
And I see that you're in Kindle Unlimited for people who are paying the monthly subscription fee, which is a whole nother topic. I think that's those people that are in Kindle Unlimited are probably almost the perfect book fans, because they're serious about reading. And
exactly, they're reading 10 books a month, or else they're not getting their money back, or they're not getting their money's worth.
And so there was some discussion recently on some of the Facebook pages I follow about whether you should be wide or go wide or be Kindle exclusive if you're doing BookBubs. But I suppose it probably depends on the scale of what you're doing.
You know what? I think for BookBub, they're actually one of the reasons you might want to spread a wider net. Other authors that I know that are also very, they sell a lot of books, that you need to be in all the different marketplaces to have a shot with BookBub nowadays. And I don't know if that's true. I haven't done it or tried the two different things to know, but I think it's possible because they also work with trade published authors and they're all over the place, so.
Right.
I wonder with the,
I guess it's probably a reason to do that.
I wonder with the being in Kindle Unlimited and being with Amazon exclusive, there was a lot of talk just in the last 2 days or so. The new report for the KDP, the pages read amount came out the last couple of days, and I don't follow it very much because I get like 1 page read every day, so it doesn't affect me very much. But
I'm a slow reader, Josh. Sorry.
The people that have like 10,000 words, 5,000 words, or pages read a day were basically, it looked like they were, I mean, obviously disappointed with the lower number in the page reads, but being in your series, being in Kindle exclusive, do you still see that as a viable place to be? I mean, a lot of people saw this lower number on the pages and they were like, that's it, I'm going wide, and I'm done with Amazon. I'm going to go wide and put it everywhere because I'm only getting
0.0043 instead of 0.0045.
Which is interesting to me because it started out at 0.0057 or 54. So it's really only a matter of like fractions of a penny. And I know it adds up, but it's money that you wouldn't be getting anyway.
I didn't even know about what you're telling me now. I guess it's what they did is they adjusted the payout per page. Is what you're saying?
Right.
And if I understand correct, about 20. Well, it sounds like about 25% lower or something like that.
Well, and I don't think that they adjusted. And I'm like, people might call me a mathematic simpleton, and they would probably be pretty accurate. But what I think that rate is adjusted by how many books are in the pool and how much they are selling, and then it's divided by that. So if 1 month you have, 10,000 more books published than the last month, then that rate's going to change because you're dividing it among more people.
Exactly. It's a fixed pool.
Not trying to punish us for being indie writers. It's like,
right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's that for sure. They got a fixed pool amongst a fixed number of books, and the books can go up or down, and the pool can get a little bigger, but typically that's just getting bigger at a fixed rate.
And I remember that I think the first year I saw that they had the shared, it wasn't even called KU at the time, but the bounty or whatever it was, the fund that they pay this from was like $4 million. And I think now it's like $17 million. So, I mean, they're putting more and more money into it. It's just there's more and more people publishing. And I was going to ask you about that earlier, that I think it seems like one of the big struggles most people have is just getting visible. And
that's true. That's exactly true. And actually, I've been working on tossing around an idea in my brain lately that, could maybe help a few people do that, and at the same time help me expand as well, which is I'm direction of I want to make Dark Space a franchise and basically hire other writers, publish the books, control the publishing, and give story ideas and guidance, but mostly like, hey, here's a leg up for you, and it helps me too. Is like turn it into a bigger series.
Yeah, I like that.
Very popular business model right now. If you're successful, you have that kind of juice, I guess, to give people kind of a boost in their career.
Exactly. And for me, it's great because it means I can move on, write other things every now and then, go back to Dark Space and write another book, but I don't have to stick with, one series just because it's popular. I can help other people, write for that series and basically take advantage.
Like Rick is saying, it's the Anderley method, which a lot of people are picking up on and using. I think who was on? We just had a guest on the other day that said that they were starting to do that. I can't remember who it was now, but it was just recently. Somebody was saying that they were going to get ready to do that. It's kind of like doing Kindle Worlds, but not Kindle Worlds. It's
exactly because Kindle Worlds limits you in a lot of ways, and also I think it's invitation only. I could be wrong.
It's invitation only, and actually we have a guest coming up that just started a contemporary Christian Kindle World. And so she just started it, and now there are a lot of authors coming in and publishing in that Kindle world. I don't have a date yet on the calendar yet, so more on that to come. But you know, when I looked at Kindle Worlds and you know, and Hugh Howey came out with his wool and
Right.
I want to say Michael Bunker had one for Pennsylvania, and it looked interesting. But you're right, there were so many rules and limitations, and it wasn't just a here, go ahead and do what you want to do. And
it was more like fan fiction too, because
right,
the authors, the original authors, didn't have a lot of input into guiding it. They just sort of provided some materials to start with.
exactly.
You know, and then it's like, okay, well, I get some. I think they were sharing royalties between the author and the people writing in the worlds. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it was something like that. Like Amazon obviously took Amazon's cut, and then
exactly
the world owner would get a cut, and then the author would.
Exactly. Which is fine, but I also found that, you know, even if it was a popular book, the world's books weren't necessarily that popular. And the problem, in my opinion, is it didn't have enough of the influence of the original creator.
Right.
Exactly.
Maybe a collaborative
it was just
project would be more
too restricted and at the same time too free.
Yeah. So maybe a closer collaboration type of thing might be more powerful. And I think that's also a good way, a learning experience when you're doing collaborative writing. Just you learn a lot when you're working with somebody who knows what they're doing. So.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's a great opportunity for up and coming writers to maybe help me develop that franchise, and I don't know, they make some money, but they'll also get their name out there, because it wouldn't be my name on the cover; it would be theirs. You know, it'd just be my title, Dark Space.
Is that something that's pretty near on the horizon for you, or?
You know, I'm looking at launching that as towards the end of the year, and having like materials like a sort of a glossary to work with of all the different things going on, and here the story, you know, like bulletin point list of all the important things that have happened in the universe, and here's what's going on, and here's more or less some ideas. You can pick which one you like.
Well, when you get ready to kind of go forward with that, we'd love to help you spread the word if you need.
That would be great. I'm actually, you know, starting to think, you know, in the next month or two, or even now, to start interviewing potential writers for that project, and see who could help me on it, who could commit to it, and how that would work.
Oh yeah, that's very neat, very cool. I think when we talked about this at the beginning of the year, when we started season 2, and that one of the things that we were interested in seeing in this year was that collaboration, like real honest collaboration between authors and small presses and author / publishers was going to be a huge thing this year, and it has been. It's taken off.
It already is. Exactly. The most popular version of that is anthologies.
Right. Exactly.
But it's like a lot of short stories, and readers actually prefer full-length novels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
So the key there is transitioning to that type of model of collaborating on full-length novels.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk. Scott and I have a couple super secret projects working that are still in the weeds, and we can't talk about them openly yet. But very, very cool to see what people are doing, and then, you know, very cool to see what universes are being widened and broadened by different people coming in and writing in them. That's very neat to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we are coming to close to the end of the hour.
We have questions. I have been totally neglecting our questions. Well, not totally. I guess we did ask them earlier.
But you already asked your favorite. Who's your secondary question?
Secondary character question, because that's really the only question I have.
Short list.
I have other questions.
That's Scott's one contribution.
I have other questions. They're all technical. They're like, Josh, how do I turn this mic on? Josh, how do I get this screen to come up? Josh, why does my Scrivener hate me?
Yeah, Scrivener doesn't hate you. You hate Scrivener.
Yeah, no, I love Scrivener now, and I'm a little bit. I know that Vellum is awesome and beautiful and everything, but I get kind of mad. I'm like, no, it's Scrivener. And like, people are like, you can't do anything good with Scrivener. I'm like, no, you can. You just have to have it set up right. Just ask Josh.
Scrivener is my go-to program. I had a bad experience with a version of it that wasn't actually Scrivener. It's like something along those lines that was free to use, and I used that for a while, and it really screwed me up one time. So after that, I went to Scrivener.
Nice.
I've been writing a lot in Google Docs and then dumping it into Scrivener, and that's more of a function of with my current work schedule, I have to write wherever I can, and so having it on my phone, or if I get an idea, I don't have to lose it. So, and there's some good things. And then I have the Read Aloud, excuse me, app. Who was it? Michael Thalman. I always say his name wrong.
Tallman.
He brought that in one of our shows about listening to your phone read your book back to you, and it's easy to do from Word. And so I do that a lot because I do a lot of driving, and it helps me keep into my story and stuff. So that's one of the reasons I do the Google thing. But I love Scrivener, and when it's set up right, it just makes life just so much easier, especially if you got a really big screen. So anyway,
well, having published 7 or 8 novels and becoming such a big success in such a short amount of time, I like to ask the age-old, what would you, if you know something when you started, what would you have done different that you knew now? Is there anything that comes to mind, any advice you can give to anybody starting out or your old self about what you would do differently knowing what you do now?
Well, like regrets or things I would change. Not much.
Either one.
But maybe I would say to my old self, I give myself tips ahead of time, like this is what you need to be doing. But no, nothing major. I think to be honest, it's been pretty smooth the whole way through. I can't think back and say, well, that's something I should have done differently. Other than my latest cover, debacle where I released a cover that turned out to be the wrong type for the genre.
Well, and that's also a win too if you ever decide to write a fantasy.
Well, now I have a cover for it, but I just got to try to make sure people don't recognize.
Didn't he use that one on the
Wait a little while until people forget.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, Jasper, can you tell us where our fans and audience members can find out more about you and where to find your books at?
Sure. Well, you can find me on Amazon. Look me up there in my author page. You can just look up Jasper T Scott. You'll find me really easily. Or Dark Space, either way. So you could go to my website, which is www.jaspertscott.com. And I don't update it that frequently, so maybe connect with me on Facebook instead. Look me up there. But I update that every time I release a book, practically, or thereabouts.
Yeah.
At the website, that is. And Facebook, I'm on there a little bit more often, but still not that frequent. I don't like to spend a lot of time Facebooking because then I can't write.
Yeah, I have that same problem.
It can. There was.
Yeah, it can be distracting.
What was it? And it was.
I got this colleague. Sorry, I got this colleague Daniel Aronson. We traded cross promos a little while back, and he's really, he's like I was when I started out with Dark Space. He had his really popular series hit big in recent time, and he was selling maybe even more than I sold. And he's just he's always on Facebook. He's got this huge Facebook following. Yeah, and I'm always reading his questions to his fans, and I'm like, man, I don't know how this guy does it. He doesn't have a life, or like he writes, and he writes fast, and then he's still got all this time to do Facebook. I envy him. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's got kids, so it's like, wow, Superman.
Maybe he's got like one of those the time turner in Harry Potter that Hermione used to take all her classes during the third or fourth movie, and she's like, I'm taking all these classes, and I've got this time turner. I don't know, maybe.
Must be.
I don't know. He's got some kind of secret he's not telling people.
That's a reasonable.
Probably, you know what it is? He probably just types twice as fast as normal humans, and he spends like 2 hours a day writing, and the rest of the time he's like, what am I going to do? I know, I'll ask another question on Facebook.
Yeah.
He's got 20 fingers.
Like a concert penis, and he's got these freaking super hands. So
Exactly. Something like that has to be.
Has to be the mystery of ending Aronson. So we tried to get him on the show a couple of times, and we'll just keep trying, I guess. So
keep picking away. He can only say no a million times.
He can, but as fast as he types, he
Yeah.
might be able to type a lot more than that. So.
No.
Take that, you guys.
Well, Jasper, thanks so much for coming on the show today, bud. It's been a blast hanging out with you and talking with you. Thanks for everybody that came and hung out with us in the live chat. All the first timers, Rick, welcome to the live show. Don't ever miss another one. You'll regret it.
Once you, it's kind of like gang life, blood in, blood out. Once you start coming to the live chat, you have to come forever, or else there's consequences.
He said it's like gang life. We don't have to jump anybody in, fortunately.
Yeah.
So.
You get blogged or what do you call it? Podcasted in.
Podcasted in, yes.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's a real thing. I think we just made that up.
That's right. Well, let us know, guys, what you thought about the show. Leave us a comment. Come visit us on Facebook in our Facebook group. We have Monica Leonel coming up next week. We have a surprise guest for Monday. It's a surprise because we haven't narrowed down who we're going to have Monday, but we are going to have a guest next Monday, so come and hang out with us. Jasper, again, thank you so much for coming and hanging out. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.
So come back next time for Scott Moon, for Josh Hayes. I'm Scott Moon. We have been live with Jasper T Scott. Come back next time. We're going to talk about some reading. We're going to talk about some writing, and of course, everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. You guys have a great Monday.
Awesome. That was a good outro. I think you should do it that way every time.
I'm just going to flip it around.
Yeah, so we're still live.